Good afternoon. Last class we discussed about Lord Dalhousie and his policy, which was introduced by very effectively to acquire the Indian states. That is about the doctrine of lapse. See, by imposing the doctrine of lapse, Lord Dalhousie was occupied the maximum of the Indian territories. Now, after that, so especially some of the local rulers, those who are lost their kingdoms and territories because of this doctrine of lapse, so they were all revolted against East India Company. So especially even the how the region also contributed a lot for the great revolt which was broke out in 1857. Are you getting now? Today's class, so regarding 1857, which was called as the first war of independence. Of course, dear students, this must be called as the first war of independence, not as a Sipahi mutiny. ಅದು ಸಿಪಾಯಿ ದಂಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಅದು. ಸೊ ಭಾರತದ ಭಾರತೀಯರ ಪ್ರಪ್ರಥಮ ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ಸಂಗ್ರಾಮ. ಆದರೆ that was described unfortunately by the British historians as Sepoy mutiny. ಅದು ಒಂದು ದಂಗೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅದು. ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಇತಿಹಾಸಕಾರರ ದೃಷ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಈ 1857 ನಡೆದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಹೋರಾಟ ಏನಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಅದನ್ನ just they were described as one of the dange. That's all. Now let us discuss about setting up a new administration. Especially dear students, Warren Hastings was the Governor General. Warren Hastings. So was actually the Governor General from 1773 to 1785. He was brought a lot of changes in administrative system, especially in the sphere of justice. He was brought a lot of changes. So Warren Hastings was one of the Governor General, was ruled admin our India as a Governor General from 1773 to 1785. So actually he was one of the many important figures who played a significant role in the expansion of company power during his time. So was played a vital role about the expansion of the company power. So by his time only, the company had acquired power not only in Bengal, so even so also in Bombay and Madras. So not only in Bengal, even in Bombay and Madras also. So Bombay, you all of knows that we used to call as Mumbai now, and Madras. So presently it is called as the Chennai. Okay. See here, the British territories were broadly divided into administrative units. So the British territory, I mean in India, in the subcontinent, so they were administrative purpose, they were divided into different units and these units were used to called as a, see, for administrative purpose. So the entire British territory in our subcontinent, so it was divided into different administrative units. Especially, so these administrative units used to call as a presidencies. Presidencies. So the entire British territories in our subcontinent, so they were broadly divided into the different administrative units. So those administrative units were used to called as a presidencies. Presidencies. Are you getting them? So there, during British India, the entire territory, it was divided into three administrative units or three presidencies. So Bombay Presidency, Madras Presidency and Bengal Presidencies. See here, each presidencies were ruled by a governor. Are you getting now? So the head of the presidencies were governor, and together all the supreme head of this all these the different units. I mean all these three units head, the supreme head of these all, they used to call as a governor general. So governor general, so he was the superior person, was look after the entire British territory in our subcontinent, and each presidency is observed by or controlled by or ruled by governors. So here Warren Hastings, he was the first Governor General of British India. So he was introduced several administrative reforms, especially in the sphere of justice. He was brought a lot of changes. From 1772, a new system of justice was established by each district. So in each district, so especially they were established the two types of courts. Two types of courts. I hope dear students, so it was very clear about. So the administrative units were divided into the different units. So broadly there were three administrative units, and these administrative units were called as the presidencies. And these presidencies were headed by, ruled by governor, and the supreme of all these three governors used to call as a governor general, was the superior or head of the entire British territories. So Warren Hastings, he was one of the first governor general of India, so he was ruled 1773 to 1785. So, under his time, he was brought a lot of changes, especially in the sphere of justice. So, in 1772, in each district, he was established the two types of courts. One is called criminal courts and civil courts. In each district, there we can observe that, so the establishment of two courts. One was a criminal and another one, so that is a civil code. This criminal code, it's used to called as a Fauzdari Adalat. Fauzdari Adalat. So the civil courts are called as Diwani Adalat. So these were the different names to call these courts. Diwani Adalat means civil courts and Fauzdari Adalat means criminal courts. See here, the Maulvis and Hindu Pandits. So they were interpreted Indian laws for European district collectors. So the district collectors or DC, he was actually presided over civil courts. The DC or the district collector, so actually during this time presided over civil courts, and the Hindu Pandits and the Muslim Maulvis, so they were interpreted Indian laws for European district collectors. And also dear students, the criminal codes were still under a Qazi and a Mufti, but they were under the supervision of the collectors. I mean the district collectors. So Qazi means judge. Qazi means what? Judge. And Mufti. So Mufti means a jurist of the Muslim community responsible for expounding law. That means explaining a law that the Qazi would administer. Understood now? So the criminal courts were still under a Qazi and Muftis, but they were under the supervision of the district collectors. I hope dear students you are able to understand. See, the major problem was that the Brahman Pandits, so they gave the different interpretations of local laws, so which are based on different schools of Dharma Shastra. So Brahmana Panditaraಗಳು ಒಂದು ಹಿಂದೂ ಲಾ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸೊ ವಿಭಿನ್ನವಾದಂತಹ ವ್ಯಾಖ್ಯಾನಗಳನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. The Brahman Pandits gave different interpretations of local laws, especially based on different kinds of or different schools of the Dharma Shastra. So Dharma Shastra is actually Sanskrit texts, Dharma Shastras. So prescribing, what were those Dharma Shastras? So the Dharma Shastras were Sanskrit texts prescribing social rules and codes of behavior composed from about 500 before Common Era or onwards. See here, to bring about uniformity, because the Brahman Pandits, they were given the different interpretations on the basis of the different schools of the Dharma Shastra. So that's what, to bring about uniformity. So in 1775, 11 Pandits, so they were asked to compile a digest of Hindu laws by the British admins. ಅದರ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಕ್ಕಳ, ಸೊ ಸುಮಾರು ಒಂದು 11 ಪಂಡಿತರನ್ನ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಹಿಂದೂ ಲಾ ಒಂದು ಡೈಜೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ NB Alhed translated this digest, which was composed in Sanskrit language into English by NB Alhed. So was translated the digest into English language. So by 1778, a code of Muslims law that is also complied for the benefit of European judges. What happened now? By 1778, a code of Muslim laws was also compiled for the benefit of European judges. So under the Regulating Act of 1773. See, a new Supreme Court was established according to the Regulating Act of 1773. So the Supreme Court was also established in our subcontinent, and while a court of appeal, the Sadar Nizamat Adalat, that means a court of appeal, so that was also set up at Calcutta. So the Sadar Nizamat Adalat, that means a court of appeal court annu saha so Calcutta dalli avaru establish ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. The principal figure in an Indian district was the collector. So was the head of the district, not during British time. So the district collector, he was the principal of or the head of the entire district, especially as the title suggests, we all of you knows that we used to call as a district collector. Collector means the title itself suggests his main job was collect to revenue and taxes and maintain law and order in his district with the help of judges, police officers and darogas. What was the main functions of the district collector? So the principal figure or who was the head of the Indian district was called as the collector, the district collector. So his main job was collected revenue and even the taxes also and maintenance of the law and order in the society, in his limitation or in his district with the help of judges, police officers and darogas. So these were the main responsibility of the district collector, and his office used to called as the collectorate. That means became the new center power and patronage that steadily replaced previous holders of authorities. So the collectorate that became the center of power, and even patronage that steadily replaced previous holders of authority. I hope, dear students, you all have understood about the responsibility of the district collector. Now let us discuss about the company army. The company army. See, colonial rule in our country brought some of the new ideas of administration and reform, but its power rested on its military strength. Of course, so the power of the country, the strength of the country, so that is going to be focused through the military strength. So the Mughal army was mainly composed of cavalry, that means Kalalupade, so Savars, those were trained soldiers on horseback, that is called as a cavalry, and infantry, and also the Paidal, that means foot soldiers. So they were given training in archery also, that means tir andaz, billugarike, adunu sah ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, and the use of sword, by using the sword, that troop used to called as a archery. So the cavalry dominated the army, and the Mughal state did not feel the need to have large, especially the professionally trained infantry. The rural areas had a large number of armed peasants and the local jamindars, so they were also often supply the Mughals with the Paidal soldiers. So they were actually, because why the were not trained, or the Mughal dynasty, they were not given that much of importance for the infantry, no. So especially for because during that time the large number of armed peasants were provided by or supplied by the jamindars and the head of the villages. See, this is what the system of the army which was during the Mughal period. But afterwards, in the 18th century, when Mughal successors states like Oudh and Benares started recruiting peasants into their armies and training them as professional soldiers. So during 18th century, what happened now? So the successors states after the Mughals, Oudh and even the Benares, so they were they were recruited peasants as soldiers, and they were given training also. So those were actually the professional soldiers, trained soldiers. The East India Company adopted the same method when it began recruitment for its own army. what the Howd and the Benares they were formed. See, which came to known as those who are appointed by the East India Company or the British administrators. So those who are called as a Sipahi. Sipahi means Sipahi army. That means so. That is the Indian word Sipahi. Sipahi means Sainika or soldier. See, as warfare technology changed from the 1820s, ದಿನ ಕಳೆದಂತ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಸೊ ಯುದ್ಧದ ಒಂದು ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಬದಲಾವಣೆಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕಾಣ್ತೀವಿ. So the technology which were used during the time, it was completely changing. So the cavalry requirements of the company's army declined. Why? Because so the British Empire was fighting in Burma, Afghanistan and Egypt, so where soldiers were armed with muskets and matchlocks. So that's what, so here the infantry, especially the company's army, sorry, not infantry, the cavalry, those who are sitting on the horses or horseback and they were struggling or fighting in the war field. So that was a decline. Why? Because now the British Empire was, they were fighting with the Burma and Afghanistan and Egypt. So where soldiers were armed with muskets and matchlocks. Musket means heavy gun used by infantry soldiers. There is a heavy gun which is called as a musket. And matchlock means an early type of the gun. This is also the type of the gun which the powder was ignited by a match. They were filled the powder, gunpowder and ignited by the match. So this used to called as a matchlock. So the soldiers of the company's army had to keep pace with changing the military requirements, and its infantry regiments now became more important. And afterwards, in the early 19th century, the British began to develop the uniform military culture. Especially the soldiers were increasingly subjected to European style training. Then drill, discipline that regulated their life for more than before. Because they were completely changed the system of the army in subcontinent. So afterwards what happened? Often this created problems since caste and community feelings were ignored in building a force of professional soldiers. Their identity, their caste, their community, their religion. So these are all ignored while prepared the soldiers as the professional soldiers by the East India Company. Now, could individuals so easily give up their caste and religious feelings? Just you can imagine. Could they see themselves only as soldiers and not members of communities? So, these are all filled by the soldiers or the Sipahis. Sipahis means the Indian soldiers, those who are under the British East India Company. So, how they were reacted, whatever the changes they brought by the East India Company in their lives and their identity and all. So, the result of that, the revolt of 1857, which we are going to discuss or learn in the chapter 5. That was the result of the 1857. So, anyhow, dear students, the East India Company was transformed from a trading company to a territorial colonial power. The arrival of new steam technology in the early 19th century also aided this process. Till then, it would take anywhere between 6 and 8 months to travel India by sea. But steam ships reduced the journey time to 3 weeks, enabling more Britishers and their families to come far off countries like India. So, by 1857, the company came to exercise a direct rule over about 63% of territory and 78% of the total population of our country. Are you getting now? So, by 1857, so the company came to exercise their direct rule over about 63% of the territory of our subcontinent, and 78% of the population of the Indian subcontinent goes under the control of British East India Company. So, combined with its indirect influence on the remaining territory and population of the country, the East India Company had virtually the whole of India under its control. I hope, dear students, you all are able to understand this topic. Now what happened afterwards? The entire India, the maximum territory that goes under the control of the East India Company, and after the 1857 event, so again the British Parliament directly took over the charge from the East India Company and they were appointed their representative as viceroy. Thank you. Have a nice day.